After Warsaw, the journey does not stop, it changes its depth, because Warsaw was about structure and direction, while here the first thing you feel is space. Space to breathe, space to slow your step, and space to listen to yourself. And as the road unfolds, you notice how your breathing becomes calmer and your gaze softer, because you are no longer moving toward a goal, you are moving into awareness. And this shift is subtle but powerful. It changes the way your body carries tension, the way your shoulders relax, and the way your thoughts stop rushing ahead. And in this quiet transition, you begin to understand that not every city exists to push you forward. Some exist to bring you back to yourself, to remind you that clarity is not found in speed but in attention, and that freedom is not loud but steady. And with each step you feel that something inside you begins to settle, as if your rhythm is finally allowed to be your own. This place does not try to impress you at first sight. It does not compete for your reaction. It waits for your presence, and the moment you stop expecting beauty in a traditional form, you begin to notice a different kind of strength, a strength built on simplicity and honesty, where walls do not hide their age and streets do not hide their stories, and when your foot touches the ground you feel the weight of history without heaviness, only with respect, and this respect shapes how you move, how you look, and how carefully you choose to listen to silence. When you arrive, you do not feel excitement, you feel awareness, a quiet awareness that slows your breath and sharpens your senses, and this awareness changes the rhythm of your steps, the way your eyes pause on details, and the way your mind opens to what is usually ignored. Because silence here is not empty, it is full of memory, reflection, and dignity. And in that silence you begin to feel that the city is not speaking to you, it is listening to you, inviting you to exist without performance or pressure. The streets are not decoration, they are pages written by time, and every surface carries traces of decisions, courage, fear, and resilience. And as you walk, you are not simply crossing space. You are crossing layers of experience that still shape the air and the energy around you, and this creates a calm respect that does not need explanation, because some stories are understood not by words but by presence, and you feel it in the way your step becomes lighter and your posture more attentive. What makes this place different is not how it looks but how it remembers, because memory here is not hidden or polished, it is accepted, and acceptance creates clarity instead of fear, stability instead of tension, and balance instead of conflict. And when a city accepts itself, it gives you permission to accept your own imperfections, your own changes, and your own growth. And this is why walking here feels grounding, as if your body and thoughts finally align into a slower and more honest rhythm. Over time you realize that freedom here is not chaos and not absence of rules, it is awareness, it is the conscious choice to live with integrity toward yourself and others. And this kind of freedom carries responsibility, not as a burden but as respect for space, for people, and for your own actions, and because of that freedom feels calm and steady, not rebellious or loud, but balanced and deeply rooted. Being different here is not a statement, it is natural, and individuality does not ask for attention, it simply exists, and this creates a quiet safety where no one needs to explain themselves or hide their uniqueness, and you feel it in your body when your shoulders drop and your breath becomes slower, because you are no longer trying to fit a shape, you are allowed to remain as you are. This place teaches patience without teaching it directly, because meaning does not reveal itself instantly, and the more you rush the less you notice, while the slower you move the more your senses open, and through this rhythm you understand that clarity comes from attention, and attention is a form of respect, both toward the place you are in and toward the moment you are living, and this lesson stays quietly inside you long after you leave. Here reality is valued more than perfection, and reality feels stronger than any polished image. Because perfection creates distance while sincerity creates connection, and connection gives weight and truth to experience, and as you walk you begin to understand that imperfection is not something to correct, it is something to understand, and through understanding you feel a deeper sense of belonging and calm. The past is not erased or hidden, it lives beside the present, and this coexistence creates continuity, because history is not treated as something finished but as something alive, something that still breathes through architecture, silence, and movement. And when a place respects its roots without being trapped by them, it creates stability that allows the future to grow naturally. Walking through these streets feels like moving through layers of choice and consequence, because every corner carries traces of courage, doubt, hope, and recovery, and even without knowing the stories you sense their weight, and this awareness changes how you carry yourself, making your movements more thoughtful, more respectful, and more conscious of the space you share with history and with others. Strength here is not loud or dominant, it appears as patience, as stability, and as quiet confidence, and when you feel this kind of strength around you, you begin to trust yourself more, to stay grounded, and to move forward without needing approval or validation, because calm certainty does not need to be proven, it only needs to be lived. You realize that this place does not try to define you, it gives you space to define yourself, and that space is one of its greatest gifts, because when expectations fall away you begin to hear your own rhythm, your own values, and your own understanding of what truly matters, and this clarity stays with you beyond the journey. There comes a moment when logic gives way to feeling, when explanation becomes less important than experience, and you understand that some cities speak through atmosphere rather than words, through energy rather than facts, and through presence rather than instruction, and this way of communication feels intimate, personal, and deeply human. Contrast is part of the character here, old and new existing side by side without conflict, and this coexistence shows that progress does not require erasing memory, and that growth can happen without destroying what came before, and this balance gives the place a sense of continuity that feels both stable and alive. Over time you feel that acceptance replaces resistance, and this acceptance creates quiet confidence, because when you stop fighting yourself your energy becomes calmer, clearer, and more focused, and that calm focus becomes a form of strength that does not need defense or explanation. And finally you sense that this place does not remain outside of you, it becomes part of your inner landscape, a reference point for clarity, courage, and balance, and once you carry this perspective, every other place you visit is seen through a deeper and more attentive awareness. Movement between European cities often matters more than movement within them. For some journeys, distance defines value. If you need to travel from Berlin to Warsaw, or onward to another European capital, a licensed private transfer service based in Poland is available. Vehicles can be dispatched to Berlin for long-distance routes, with professional drivers and clear conditions agreed in advance. This service is designed for intercity and cross-border travel, not for short local rides. Routes typically begin at several hundred kilometers, where reliability and planning become essential. More information is available at modlandtransfer.com, with the link included in the description. After the pause of reflection you return to movement with a clearer mind, and you notice how space here feels open even when the streets are narrow, because openness is not created by size, it is created by atmosphere, and atmosphere comes from sincerity, and sincerity allows everything to exist without pretending to be something else, and this is why walking here feels light, as if the city is not pressing itself onto you, but moving beside you at the same pace. You begin to understand that comfort here is not about luxury or perfection, it is about acceptance, because when a place accepts its own complexity, it gives you permission to accept yours, and this creates a quiet sense of safety where you do not need to perform, explain, or adjust yourself to fit expectations, and this freedom to simply exist becomes one of the most valuable experiences the city offers. There is a sense that time moves differently here, not slower and not faster, but deeper, because moments are not rushed or consumed, they are experienced, and this depth changes the way memories are formed, making them feel richer, more meaningful, and more connected to who you are rather than to where you were. You notice how contrasts live together naturally, how old buildings stand next to modern structures without tension, and how tradition and change do not compete but support each other, showing that progress does not require erasing identity, and that growth can be respectful, thoughtful, and grounded at the same time. Gradually you feel that this place teaches balance between movement and stillness, between expression and silence, between independence and connection, and this balance becomes something you carry inside yourself long after you leave, because it reshapes how you relate not only to cities but to your own inner space. At some point you notice that the city never tries to rush you forward, it allows you to remain where you are for as long as you need, and this permission to pause becomes powerful, because in a world that constantly demands speed and reaction, being allowed to simply exist without pressure feels rare and deeply valuable. You start to sense that creativity here is not forced or staged, it grows naturally from freedom and trust, because when people are not afraid of being judged or corrected, they allow themselves to explore, experiment, and express without limits, and this openness gives the place an energy that feels alive and authentic. There is a quiet confidence in the way this place holds itself, because it does not seek approval or validation, it knows what it has survived and what it has become, and that knowledge creates stability, a calm certainty that stands firmly in its own identity. You realize that this environment teaches respect not through rules or instruction, but through atmosphere, because when a place respects its own history and its own people, you naturally begin to respect it as well, and respect becomes a shared language that shapes how everyone moves and interacts. Over time you feel that this city becomes less about discovery and more about understanding, because discovery is only the first step, and understanding is what truly changes you, and this shift from curiosity to connection is what makes the experience lasting and deeply personal. You start to feel that this place gives you permission to slow your thoughts, because nothing here demands instant reaction, and without that pressure your mind becomes clearer, calmer, and more focused, and in that clarity you understand that speed often hides meaning, while stillness allows it to appear naturally and without force. There is a quiet honesty in the way life unfolds here, because things are not exaggerated or disguised, they are allowed to exist as they are, and this simplicity creates trust, a feeling that what you see is what truly exists, and that truth brings a rare sense of comfort and stability. You notice how people move with awareness, not trying to impress or compete, but simply occupying space with confidence and respect, and this way of being slowly influences you as well, making your own movements more conscious and your presence more grounded. Over time you feel that this city becomes less about observing and more about participating, because you are no longer a visitor looking from the outside, you are part of the rhythm, part of the flow, and part of the quiet balance that defines the atmosphere around you. And in that participation you realize that understanding a place is not about collecting memories, it is about forming connection, because connection changes you, shapes you, and stays with you long after the journey itself has ended. You begin to feel that this city does not push you to become someone else, it gently reminds you to return to yourself, and this return is not dramatic, it is quiet and natural, like remembering something important that you once knew but forgot, and in this remembrance you find calm. There is a softness in the way time is experienced here, because moments are not treated as resources to be consumed, but as spaces to be lived, and when you start living moments instead of using them, everything becomes richer, deeper, and more meaningful. You notice that even movement feels different, not rushed and not heavy, but intentional, as if every step carries awareness, and this awareness creates harmony between you and your surroundings, where nothing feels forced and nothing feels accidental. There is a quiet dignity in how this place carries its history and its present at the same time, without conflict or tension, showing that identity does not have to be chosen between past and future, it can be built from both. Slowly you understand that what stays with you is not the image of streets or buildings, but the feeling of presence, the memory of calm attention, and the experience of being fully aware in a space that allows you to be complete without asking you to become anything more. You begin to understand that what makes this place special is not any single landmark or famous location, it is the feeling that everything is allowed to exist without pressure to be perfect, and this freedom from expectation creates space for sincerity, where moments do not have to be impressive, they only have to be real, and in that reality you find a calm sense of belonging that does not depend on approval or recognition. There is a gentle balance between individuality and togetherness, because people are free to be themselves while still respecting the space of others, and this balance creates harmony, showing that independence does not have to mean isolation, and connection does not have to mean loss of identity, and this understanding quietly reshapes how you relate to those around you. You notice that attention becomes more important than destination, because the value is not in where you are going, but in how fully you experience where you are, and this shift from outcome to presence changes everything, turning ordinary moments into meaningful ones simply by allowing yourself to be fully aware. Over time you feel that trust grows naturally, trust in the city, in its rhythm, and in yourself, because when nothing tries to control or rush you, confidence appears on its own, and this confidence is not loud or demanding, it is calm, steady, and deeply reassuring. And in this calm confidence you realize that the greatest gift this place offers is not inspiration or excitement, but clarity, the clarity to see what matters, to let go of what does not, and to move forward with a quiet sense of purpose that feels honest and sustainable. You start to feel that this place slowly becomes a reference point inside you, a quiet reminder that life does not have to be rushed or perfected to be meaningful, and this reminder stays even when you are far away, guiding you back to calm whenever the world becomes too loud or demanding. There is a sense that what you take with you is not information or images, but a way of seeing, a softer and more attentive way of moving through space, where patience replaces urgency and understanding replaces judgment, and this change feels subtle but deeply powerful. You realize that this city teaches not through words or rules, but through atmosphere, because atmosphere shapes perception, and perception shapes experience, and experience is what truly stays with you long after the journey ends. Over time you understand that what makes this place unforgettable is not how dramatic it is, but how honest it feels, because honesty creates trust, and trust creates connection, and connection is what turns a destination into a part of your own story. And finally you feel that this journey has quietly shifted something inside you, not by giving answers, but by creating space for clarity, where you no longer need to search for meaning, because meaning begins to appear naturally in the way you see, feel, and live. Slowly the breath becomes deeper and more even, as if the city quietly invites the body to release tension and return to a natural rhythm, and in that rhythm calm appears without effort, not as something achieved, but as something remembered. There is a softness in the air that cannot be explained by weather or architecture, a softness born from respect for space and silence, and this softness makes movement lighter and thoughts less sharp, as if the world itself has chosen to slow down. No moment here asks to be filled with action, because stillness carries its own meaning, and allowing a pause becomes a form of respect toward balance and attention. With each step, movement gains intention, and walking turns into a dialogue between the body and the space around it, where nothing is demanded and nothing is judged, only felt and understood. Silence reveals itself not as emptiness, but as presence, as communication without words, a space where awareness deepens and connection replaces noise. A gentle permission exists here to release expectations, to stop measuring every experience by outcome, and to let moments unfold without pressure or control. The gaze becomes softer, less searching and more observing, and in that shift the world reflects clarity instead of urgency. Patience grows naturally, not as discipline, but as understanding that everything has its own rhythm and its own right to exist without being rushed. Trust appears quietly, trust in being exactly where you are, without the need to know what comes next, and this trust brings stability that feels calm and grounded. Presence shows itself not as effort, but as permission, permission to stay, to breathe, and to accept what is happening without resistance or fear. The body responds first, shoulders relax, breath deepens, and movement becomes slower not from hesitation, but from attention. Space no longer feels like something to conquer, it feels like something to share, and sharing creates harmony rather than tension. Thoughts become lighter, less crowded, and clarity appears between them, not because answers are found, but because questions lose their urgency. Time feels gentler, no longer pressing forward or pulling backward, but flowing in a balanced and natural way. Not everything needs explanation here, some things only need attention, and attention is enough to create meaning. Listening becomes more important than speaking, because listening allows understanding without force. Movement slows, not from weakness, but from awareness, and awareness gives every step quiet confidence. Inner space becomes as important as external space, and caring for it becomes a form of respect toward life itself. Calm confidence replaces tension, because there is no longer a need to prove or defend. Balance appears when movement and stillness are no longer treated as opposites, but as parts of the same rhythm. Freedom is no longer about escape, it becomes about being fully present where life is happening. Body and mind begin to move together instead of against each other, and this harmony feels grounding. Ordinary moments gain weight and meaning when they are met with full attention. The city no longer feels like a destination, it feels like a mirror, reflecting inner pace and inner clarity. Growth shows itself not only through change, but through acceptance. Breath becomes an anchor, quietly holding attention in the present. Awareness feels less like something created and more like something allowed. Personal rhythm becomes enough, without comparison and pressure. Balance grows through trust rather than control. Calm becomes natural when resistance fades. Each moment feels complete when it is no longer forced to become something else. Attention reveals itself as the purest form of respect. Freedom begins with acceptance. Clarity strengthens when direction is no longer forced. Awareness changes not what is seen, but how it is seen, and in that change the journey becomes quieter, deeper, and more honest, as if every step is no longer about moving forward, but about arriving more fully into the moment itself. For long-distance travel between European cities, reliability matters more than speed, because when your journey begins in Berlin and leads toward Warsaw or beyond, what truly matters is clarity, safety, and confidence in every step of the route, and that is why a licensed private transfer service based in Poland operates across borders by prior arrangement, focusing on long-distance travel rather than short local rides, offering professional drivers, clear conditions, and a structured approach to intercity movement. And if you want to learn more about this service, details and contact information are available at modlintransfer.com. with the link in the description. And as this chapter comes to an end, you realize that this journey was never only about a city, it was about a way of seeing, a way of slowing down enough to notice what usually stays unnoticed, because places like this do not change you by force, they change you by presence, by giving you space to breathe, to reflect, and to listen to yourself without distraction, and that is a rare gift in a world that constantly asks for speed, reaction, and certainty. When you leave, you do not feel that you are leaving something behind, you feel that you are carrying something forward, a quieter perspective, a steadier rhythm, and a deeper respect for simplicity and clarity in both places and people, and this understanding stays with you not as a memory, but as a mindset that influences how you walk, how you choose, and how you relate to the spaces around you. Because once you experience a place that values authenticity over perfection, you begin to seek the same quality in your own life, in your own decisions, and in your own direction, and you start to understand that travel is not about collecting destinations, it is about collecting awareness, not about searching for difference, but about learning how to stay present wherever you are. And as the road continues to unfold, you carry with you a calmer way of looking at the world, a way that allows things to be as they are, without forcing meaning or rushing toward conclusions, and in this calm you find balance, in this balance you find confidence, and in this confidence you find freedom that does not depend on movement, but on understanding. And as the sound slowly fades, what stays is not a picture or a memory, but a feeling, a quiet reminder that progress is not always about distance, and growth is not always about speed. Sometimes growth is about awareness, about choosing to be present, and about allowing life to unfold without pressure. And in this quiet ending you do not feel closure, you feel continuation, because the road does not stop here, it only changes shape, and every place you have seen becomes part of how you move forward, how you choose, and how you stay aware of yourself. And so the story rests for a moment, not to end, but to breathe, because every pause is part of movement, and every silence is part of understanding. And in that calm space you carry forward what truly matters, awareness, balance, and the freedom to remain present wherever the road leads next. And the journey continues, quietly and steadily, and forward, with calm, and in silence.